Oasis became a defining force in the Britpop movement of the mid-90s and were characterized by their countless hit songs, at least in the UK, the Gallagher brothers' notorious sibling rivalry, and the group's cockiness. They penned one of the most popular and enduring songs of the 90s, Wonderwall, a song that has surpassed 2 billion streams on Spotify, and it's a song that accumulates 750,000 streams a week across various platforms, including Spotify and YouTube. Or to put it in other terms, the song generates about $3,000 in royalties on Spotify every day, which amounts to about $1 million a year. Talk about having a great passive income.
Backbeat, the word is on the street that the fire in your heart is out.
It's one of only a handful of songs from the last century to routinely appear on the Spotify 200 chart, a chart that we all know has not been very kind to rock music. Oasis, throughout their storied career though, strangely enough, only had one top 50 hit on the US pop charts. So do you guys consider them a one-hit wonder in the States or something else? Let's talk about the story behind Wonderwall in today's video. Oasis formed in Manchester, England in 1991 under the moniker Rain. This lineup consisted of bassist Paul McGuigan, guitarist Paul Bonehead Arthurs, drummer Tony McCarroll, and singer Chris Hutton. Unhappy with their vocalist, the band soon enlisted an acquaintance of Bonehead, Liam Gallagher. Upon joining though, Liam suggested the band change their name to Oasis, taking inspiration from a band called the Spiral Carpets, who Liam had a tour poster of in his bedroom when he was a kid. On that poster, his brother Noel was working as a roadie for the Spiral Carpets at the time and saw his brother Liam's band and was pretty impressed with them. Noel had already written a handful of songs and joined the group as their lead guitarist and principal songwriter. Fast forward to 2 years later in May of 1993, and Oasis were offered the chance to play a gig at the Wawa Club in Glasgow, Scotland, by the group's sister lovers who the band shared rehearsal spaces with. Upon arriving at the venue, they were denied the chance to perform, but they managed to talk their way on stage. It just so happened that in the audience that night was Alan McGee, co-owner of Creation Records, who would go on to sign Oasis, and the band would be represented internationally by Sony. But things got off to a rocky start when the band began recording their debut record, Definitely Maybe. After a series of stops and starts and changing producers, as well as of course spending a ton of money, they finally released their debut album in August of '94. Definitely Maybe was a commercial success in the UK, becoming the fastest selling debut album in British history at the time. The album featured 4 hit singles, including Live Forever, Supersonic, Shaker Maker, and Cigarettes and Alcohol, which helped establish Oasis as a major force in the UK music scene. Live Forever and Cigarettes and Alcohol became top 10 hits in the UK, while Shaker Maker and Supersonic peaked at number 11 and 31. I also, of course, got to give a shout out to the song Rock and Roll Star. Who remembers that from Rock Band DLC? Definitely Maybe was a smash success, going on to sell 2 million copies in the UK and 8 million copies worldwide. Of course, the sales were only bolstered when the group's follow-up album became a huge hit. By the end of the year, the band released the non-album single Whatever, which peaked at number 3 in the UK, but the group struggled to make inroads in the US. At home, Oasis were being heralded as part of the so-called Britpop movement, something that was labeled as being represented by locally grown, bright, and catchy alternative rock that stood in sharp contrast to the much darker US-based grunge bands from the Pacific Northwest. Oasis spent nearly a year on the road that was tumultuous, to say the least. The Gallagher brothers feuded, the band fired their drummer, and had a very public rivalry with Blur that was, of course, also pushed by the press. They soon enlisted drummer Alan White. In 1995, Oasis planned on releasing their much-anticipated follow-up, What's the Story? Morning Glory, which was recorded at Rockfield Studios in Wales. While Blur and Oasis had initially praised each other in the press, they soon started sniping at each other by the summer of '95. New Musical Express, in their August 12th issue, published the headline British Heavyweight Championship. Both groups were releasing albums the same year, nearly a month apart. Oasis were of course putting out their second record on October 2nd, 1995, while Blur were putting out their fourth record, Great Escape, on September 11th. Both bands were also dropping singles on the same day. Oasis were planning on putting out their second single, Roll With It, with the first being Some Might Say, which came out earlier in April and was a #1 hit.
Some might say that we should never ponder.
Blur, meanwhile, were releasing the song Country House. The British weeklies didn't see the rivalry as just about songs, but also about British class and regional divisions, as Oasis were from Northern England while Blur were from the South. If you want to really feel old and remember what was in the news in 1995, New Musical Express wrote about the rivalry in their issue. Yes, in a week where news leaked that Saddam Hussein was preparing nuclear weapons, everyday folks were still getting slaughtered in Bosnia, and Mike Tyson was making his comeback, tabloids and broadsheets alike went Britpop crazy. This rivalry was being heralded as the biggest musical fight since the Beatles and the Stones. Blur ended up winning the week with their single topping the UK charts with 274,000 singles sold, while Oasis finished a close second with 216,000 copies sold. As a result, Blur appeared on the show Top of the Pops to perform their hit single. Noel remarked seeing the performance and later revealed how he would have rather had the song Cigarettes and Alcohol going head-to-head with Blur than Roll With It. While Blur celebrated that week, in the long run, Oasis enjoyed much more success with What's the Story Morning Glory, thanks in large part to today's topic, Wonderwall. The song was presented to frontman Liam Gallagher during the sessions for the second album, with Liam admitting to Rolling Stone he wasn't initially a fan of the track, recalling, "At first, I didn't like it. What the f is this tune?" I said. "I don't like this. It's a bit funky. I got Police vibes. It was a bit staying. I like the heavier stuff," I said. Noel initially had two songs, Wonderwall, which was originally called Wishing Well, and Don't Look Back in Anger, and asked Liam to choose one of them to sing lead vocals on. So Liam went with Wonderwall, while his brother chose the other.
Today is gonna be the day that they're gonna throw it back to you. Outside, summertime's in.
Liam later remarked to Rolling Stone that he would have sang leads on both if he was given the chance. Wonderwall's basic track was completed pretty quickly in just one day, and Liam did the vocals the next morning and then went to a nearby pub. The finishing touches were the piano part that Noel played at the end of the song, and a keyboard was used to simulate an orchestra. Liam told the group's producer Owen Morris that his vocals sounded too loud in the mix, with Morris recalling that was the only time Liam made such a statement.
Believe that anybody feels the way I do about you now.
As for how those sessions went, their producer remarked that it was pretty peaceful, adding, "The sessions were the best, easiest, least fraught, most happily creative time I've ever had in a recording studio. Wonderwall shows a particular vulnerability that wasn't found in the band's previous releases, which contained more swagger than anything else. Its simple yet emotive arrangement featuring acoustic guitar and Liam's distinct vocals contributed to its timeless appeal. The song was initially thought to be about Noel's then-girlfriend and later wife Meg Matthews because that's what he initially told the press. But following his divorce with Matthews in 2001, he seemed to change his tune on what the song was about, telling Rolling Stone, "The meaning of the song was taken away from me by the media who jumped on it. And how do you tell your missus it's not about her once she's read it is? It's a song about an imaginary friend who's going to come and save you from yourself." As for the term Wonderwall, that was inspired by George Harrison's 1968 album Wonderwall Music, the first solo album released by any member of the Beatles. While you've probably heard stories of musicians or producers or even labels not knowing how big a song was going to be, it seemed like Oasis's label knew that Wonderwall was going to be a smash hit. But it was issued as the fourth single coming out on October 30th, 1995, and it proved to be the song that broke through in America, peaking at number 8 on the Hot 100 chart, and it had staying power being number 1 on the Modern Rock Tracks chart for 2.5 consecutive months. It also went on to top the charts in nearly a dozen countries, but in a strange twist, given its massive popularity and being such an iconic song from the Britpop era, it never topped the UK charts, peaking at number 2 with the Robson and Jerome tune, I Believe, taking the number 1 spot.
Above the storm, the smallest breath will still be heard.
But don't feel too bad for Oasis. They nabbed 2 Grammy nominations for the song, with Wonderwall receiving the greatest all-time song vote by Virgin Radio listeners, displacing legendary acts like the Beatles, Led Zeppelin, and Queen. Let me know if you guys agree in the comment section below. Not only that, but it went on to become one of the most covered songs in history. Oh, and the group's album, What's the Story Morning Glory, became one of the best-selling UK records in history, going 17 times platinum. It also produced a slew of other big hits, including Don't Look Back in Anger, which went to number 1 in the UK, and peaked at number 55 on the Hot 100 charts. Meanwhile, my personal favorite, Champagne Supernova, which topped the alternative airplay chart in America and went number 8 on the mainstream rock Rolling Stone. I remember going into pubs and people would just be singing it alongside the jukebox with their arms in the air. We also can't forget about the memorable black and white music video that garnered a ton of play on MTV. Directed by Nigel Dick, who's worked with a who's who of artists including Guns N' Roses all the way to Britney Spears and Alice in Chains, to name just a few. The filming of the promotional video took place during a brief period when the group's bassist quit the band due to nervous exhaustion, being replaced by Scott McLeod in the video. Brian Monaco, the president and global chief marketing officer of Sony ATV Music Publishing, who administers the copyright to the song, remarked to Rolling Stone that Wonderwall is one of the publishing company's most lucrative tracks, keeping in mind that their roster includes such illustrious artists as the Beatles, Bob Dylan, Queen, and Stevie Wonder, in addition to more modern artists like Ed Sheeran and Lady Gaga. The success of What's the Story Morning Glory helped cement Oasis' status as the leading band from the Britpop era, at least commercially. In the ensuing years, the Gallagher brothers, for all the exposure the song has gotten, have had a roller coaster relationship with the track. Liam recognized that due to the song's overexposure, some people don't like it, with him remarking, "I don't know anything about Spotify and all that, but all I can say is that people love it and people hate it. I'm not comparing it to Imagine, but a lot of people say Imagine that, but some people say it's one of the best songs around." Over the decades, the Gallagher brothers have fallen in and out of love with the song. Liam admitted to Rolling Stone that there's been periods of his career where he was sick of the song, but he chose to play it anyways because people paid their hard-earned money to hear it. As for what Noel thinks about the song looking back, he'd remarked that he isn't a particular fan of the track and added that he thinks Cigarettes and Alcohol is a better song. But he also counts himself lucky to have so many iconic and enduring songs under his belt. Last year, after Noel toured with the Smashing Pumpkins, he told Face magazine, "The sight of two goths, one in a Rancid t-shirt, one in a Kiss t-shirt, with their arms around each other singing Wonderwall in Arkansas, is not something you see every day." Following the success of their second record, Noel remarked that Oasis were now bigger than God. So of course, with a statement like that, there was only one place to go, and that was down. The group returned in 1997 with one of the most anticipated albums in history with Be Here Now, a record that was released just as Britpop was winding down, like so many trends in music do. While it initially received a lot of critical praise, history hasn't been so kind to it, with critics looking back, dismissing it as being bloated and overproduced. Be Here Now peaked at number 2 in the US and number 1 in the UK, eventually going platinum in the States and 6 times platinum in the UK. In the subsequent years, despite changing musical trends and infighting between the Gallagher brothers, Oasis surprisingly continued to tour and release albums until 2009, when the Gallagher brothers called it quits following a backstage brawl at a gig in France. In 2006, Noel Gallagher took a swipe at Green Day, claiming that their massive hit Boulevard of Broken Dreams from their 2004 record American Idiot sounded quite similar to Wonderwall. Gallagher told an interviewer, "If you listen, you'll find exactly the same arrangement as Wonderwall. They should have had the decency to wait until I'm dead before stealing my songs. I at least pay the people I steal from that courtesy." Gallagher is referring to the accusations of plagiarism that dogged Oasis early in their career, where they had to add co-writers and/or pay damages and share song publishing as well. In the years that followed, the brothers pursued their own musical projects, with Noel fronting the High Flying Birds, while his brother Liam pursued a solo career and the band BDI as well. After years of speculation and public feuds between the Gallaghers, Oasis finally announced a reunion tour set for next year. This marks 16 years since their split in 2009, and the reunion will include 14 dates across the UK and Ireland. Their reunion also coincides with the 30th anniversary of What's the Story Morning Glory. That does it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts on the album and the reunion in the comment section below, and we'll see you again in Rock and Roll True Stories. Take care.